And hello, welcome everyone to this video of playing with .NET or .NET Core, and we are playing with Razor Pages. We've been playing with Razor Pages for a very long time. So last few videos we were talking about singletons, transients, and scoped services. And services are nothing but classes we add into our .NET Core, into our container. Okay, basically our website, to make it available for every page. Now, one of the classes, you know that classes we can actually use it to store lots of things. Okay, if you go to .NET Test, you go to models. If I go to this chickenburger.cs, you see that for classes I'm able to store a lot of things. For example, these properties, or properties like patties and all these kind of things. If I go to ibuns or buns.cs, you see that I can store functions in classes. I can store data in classes. So one of the ways to store data is to create a singleton class, meaning to say create a class that persists throughout all web pages and always stays the same no matter how many times you reload the web page. Okay, so it will stay the same for the whole web page. So you add this singleton class, and then this data will be sort of shared between all the web pages. What is the downside of this? Well, the downside of this is that if you require this singleton service or this class that persists throughout the whole web page to store so much data, it will start eating up into your memory. Okay, where is this data being stored? Usually class memory for objects and classes, they are stored in the random access memory, or RAM. And for computers that are older, okay, it may not be such a good idea. Okay, so let's say you have 4 gigabytes or less of RAM, you can only store 4 gigabytes of memory. So it's not that good. Now, in the real world, take for example, you have 200 users trying to store each of their own data onto this class or object. And every one of them takes maybe 1 gig of data. So if you store everything in memory, easily you will need 200 gigabytes. If 200 users surf a website and store 1 gigabyte of memory into this singleton class or singleton service, then we'll start having problems. You need 200 gigabytes of RAM, and RAM is not cheap. Okay, so that's not such a good idea. And moreover, if your server somehow crashes, all that data is lost. It's not the best idea to keep your data locked in your random access memory, or RAM. And of course, in a real world internet case, you may have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of users surfing a website at any one time, and all of them they may use this service to store data, and that's not a good idea. So you tend to want to store data on disk drives, okay, and a lot of the times the data can be stored in tables. For example, you have a database of username and email address, because a lot of websites like to ask you to fill in your username and email address. So data like this can be stored in tables like this, in a spreadsheet. Okay, but spreadsheets have limited capability. Right, spreadsheets like LibreOffice Calc or even other proprietary spreadsheet software, they have very limited capability. Anything bigger than that, then you will have to use something called database. Okay, databases, of course, there are 2 types. One of them, you can store it in memory. Okay, just like how we store objects in memory, in our RAM. But of course, RAM is expensive, RAM is limited, and RAM is what we like to call volatile. Meaning to say, if we crash the RAM, if the program stops, all the data is lost. However, if you store and retrieve data from the RAM, it is a very fast process. So your data retrieval and data writing speed is very, very fast, even faster than your solid state drive. Okay, but your alternative is to start storing all this data on the disk. Okay, And to store data on a disk, yes, you have a lot. It's a lot cheaper than storing it in the RAM, and it's less volatile. Meaning to say, if your program crashes, at least your data is saved. Just like if you store this spreadsheet and you just make sure you save it. Save this as this test spreadsheet.ods, you will be able to store it and save it. Well, because why? Because you can actually store it on your disk drive. Okay, whether it's a SSD or a hard disk drive, it's pretty much a similar concept. Of course, SSDs, solid state drives, are faster than disk drives, but that's beside the point. Okay, though of course for real life operations that's important. Okay, babbled on enough. So what kind of a database are we using here? Okay, there are a few things that are available online, but I'll stick mainly with the free and open source as far as possible, because I don't like software that it's being controlled by any by Microsoft, because then they'll start charging you money and stuff, and if I want to do anything I want with it, or commercialize or not commercialize, or even share the software that I eventually create, well, I don't have freedom with proprietary software. But with open source software, I can do it. Okay, and one of the very important open source software for databases is MySQL or MySQL. However, MySQL isn't as open source as before, so yeah, the better or the more open source version of MySQL is this thing called mariadb, which is a fork or a version of MySQL, but it's developed by some other people or some of the original developers of MySQL, but long story short, it's more open source. So here I actually have some tabs open. One is this thing called differences between in-memory databases and disk-memory databases. So I've talked about the concept of storing your data on the RAM versus storing it on your disk drive. So the disk drive is this disk-memory database, and in-memory database is here. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about this anymore. I'll leave the link in the description. But what I want to focus on is how to use MariaDB. But of course, before we use MariaDB, we got to install it. So I already have another video to install MariaDB, but just for your reference, okay, I'm going to show you some of the steps. Okay, I used to install MariaDB. So let's see how long I have. Okay, I still have about 12 minutes. So let me go to Arch Linux MariaDB, and then I'll just show you all the steps here so that you don't have to go to the other video to go and watch it. I'll just put everything here for you. Okay, so let me exit this first. This is me having installed MariaDB on my computer. Okay, so first, to show you how to install it, I need to uninstall MariaDB. Okay, so let's go look for MariaDB on the App Store. Okay, the App Store in Manjaro is known as Parmac. So this is actually Parmac. So I'll just uninstall every single bit of MariaDB, which is MariaDB, MariaDB-clients, and MariaDB-libs or libraries. So I'm going to uninstall everything. Okay, but it says MariaDB libraries is required by some other things, so I'm not going to uninstall MariaDB libs. So I'm not going to uninstall that. I'm just going to uninstall these two things, and I'm going to sort of start from scratch. Okay, and the other thing I'm going to stop is the MariaDB service. So sudo systemctl stop MariaDB, and I'm going to type that in. And then I'm going to try typing MariaDB inside there, and it says okay, application is not installed. So I have a fresh so-called computer without installing MariaDB. So now that I find it a bit amusing that I'm uninstalling just to install it. And so I'm uninstalling things so I can show you how to install them. But that's what I'm doing here. Okay, so to install it, yes, obviously you search for MariaDB, you just select MariaDB here, and it's under the official repositories extra. Click apply, and do not choose any of the dependencies unless you know what you're doing or know what you need. Yeah, it can make installation and uninstallation a little bit more of a hassle. So I'm not going to install any of these dependencies, and then it will just install whatever is needed. On your computer, if you don't have MariaDB libraries, it will be automatically installed here as well. So just click apply, and it will just install. Next thing want you to do is to quickly remove, clean up your directory, because the thing is, we need if we are not really ready to use MariaDB just yet. So if I type in MariaDB, it will give you an error. So it's not just that you install it from the App Store and suddenly everything works. So how are we supposed to do it? Well, after installing the MariaDB package from the software library, we actually need to do a few more steps to configure it. So what are we doing to configure it? Well, we need to make sure, MariaDB is a database, a server. So we need to make sure that the server is starting up. Just like how we've been using .NET Watch to start up our website server so that we can use the browser to go and view what's on the website. We also need to configure some of the server settings for MariaDB so that the MariaDB server can be set up. And what does this program do? This server do? The server will read and write data to your database on your disk or in the memory. But of course, we'll just stick with disk stuff for now. We'll not do in-memory databases. We'll just do disk databases. So the whole idea is to get you equipped and familiarized with MariaDB, or MySQL. It's basically the similar thing, And then once you're more familiar with this, we can hop back to .NET Core and then see how Microsoft actually likes to use MariaDB in that context. So of course we'll be all using command line interface, no graphical user interface, so just be patient, but you got to learn all these things. It will be very helpful. So we said that MariaDB is we cannot connect anything, right? So what do we actually need to do? We need to start the MariaDB service, but even before that, we actually need to configure a few things before we start. So we use this command maria-install-db, and we are using it as the root user, or aka sudo, which means run as administrator or run as root. We're actually making a new user there called MySQL or MySQL. We are giving MariaDB a base user directory and also a data directory. So where do you dump all your databases? We actually dump it here. So of course these are the defaults. It's best to use defaults if you're doing it for the first time. If you want to alter it next time and try to experiment around, be my guest. But let's just start with the defaults. And of course, before we start, we want to clean up this directory because I installed a version of MariaDB before, so I do not want anything there. If not, it may mess up with my installation. So always good habit, remove this folder before you start this installation process. If not, you will have some bugs or errors later. Other people have complained about this before. So yeah, so I'm going to copy and paste here all of these commands. Sudo install maria-install-db user equals MySQL, so that will create a MySQL a user. We give it a base directory and a data directory, and we'll just enter. And what happens now? So installing MariaDB system tables in this file. To start MySQL daemon or D at boot time, you have to copy support files.mysql server to the right place for your system. I guess that's something to pay attention to later on. Okay, what does it say also? Two all privileged accounts were created. One is root at localhost. It has no password, but you need to be in system root user to connect. What does it mean? It means when you start MariaDB, you need to use sudo. Okay, and that's the easiest way to use MariaDB. If you are not really concerned about security or messing things up, okay, by all means use sudo. Okay, so use, for example, sudo mysql or sudo mariadb. If you use either of these commands, you'll result in basically the same thing. Okay, second is mysql. The host has no password, but you need to be on system mysql user to connect. After connecting, you can set a password and anything so that you can connect as any of these users without password or without sudo. So that's optional if you want, but it's definitely a better way of doing things, a more secure way. But for me, I don't really care about that right now, so I'm just going to use sudo mariadb every time. Okay, this is the easiest way. Then we'll worry about users later. You just start using mariadb as is. Okay, so it says here you can start the mariadb user daemon with cd user mysql d save and all of this. Well, okay, well, you can start this, you can start it like that using this or you can test the mariadb daemon like so. So there's a few ways to start. So one is that we change directory to the user. Okay, let me show you the way I'm familiar with first. Okay, because I've not tried this before, any of these ways. Let me show you the way I'm used to first. So what we need to do is sudo systemctl start mariadb. So that will start the mariadb for this session. But if you want to start it at boot time at startup, then of course you will need to enable it as well, like so. And probably you have to worry about what these support files are. As of now, I'm not that sure. I'm still, as I learn, I do stuff. That's how I roll with this channel. Okay, so sudo systemctl start mariadb and enable mariadb. Starting it starts the mariadb server now, and then enabling it, so-called, it's supposed to make it available automatically at startup. Okay, otherwise you just have to manually start the mariadb server every time. So this is starting the mariadb server. Now how do you connect to the mariadb server? Just like, you know, we start dotnet watch. Okay, dotnet watch to start our website. So this is the equivalent of starting the web server, except this is for the database server. Okay, how do you actually view these servers? Well, you need to actually start the sudo mariadb. Okay, and there you go, you are in the mariadb monitor. So you have the mariadb version is blah 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 on mariadb arch linux. Okay, and if you want to exit, just type exit. Okay, so again sudo mariadb, and then you want to exit, just click exit. You can also use sudo mysql, it will give you the same interface. So I guess mysql is much more concise, so you may want to use that. Long story short, whether I type mariadb or sql, it's pretty much the same thing. And I like that how, you know, if I type sudo mariadb, this is just a comment, extra comment. If I type exit, it actually says bye to you. That's kind of cute. I like that. Thank you, developers. It's very cute feature that you have here. Okay. Okay, enough of that. Okay, so let's get down to some business and start ourselves with some basic mariadb commands. Okay, I'll show you. I won't say teach. I'll just walk through with you how to go through some of the how to view databases and tables. So tables, you know, tables are like this spreadsheet. You have 1 2 3. Let's say cool boy 123, cool boy 23. You know, his email address is gamer at xyz.com. Okay, so imagine this is a game database or something. So you can actually do stuff like this, or actually for my case, I'll use a different table because I'm actually dealing with chemical process and or heat transfer, all this kind of stuff. So so this is an example of a table, what I'm highlighting here, and you'll see something similar in MariaDB. Okay, and what's an example of a database? Well, if you see this LibreOffice, you will see there will be many spreadsheets actually attached to it. So the database is actually pretty much something like this entire spreadsheet. This spreadsheet has multiple sheets in it. So sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, you can actually rename it as you like. Okay, so like, you know, this database, okay, a database can be likened to the entire spreadsheet file. Okay, a database is there to hold multiple tables of data, and that's how it's easier to think about databases and tables. So tables is just like pretty much what you're seeing here. Databases is like, you know, the overall, you know, way to group tables together. Okay, so let's see that in action. Okay, so let me show you how to navigate, or this is walkthrough with you. So I exit, I can do sudo mariadb. Okay, and then what I can do here is show databases, and this will show you all the databases available. So what are the databases available? Here's we have information schema, MySQL, performance schema, sys, and test. Okay, so again, show databases. So that is going to what do you call that? Show you all the so-called, well, in a sense, spreadsheets available. So spreadsheets are like databases. So let me close this. I don't need this anymore. Spreadsheets are like databases. So we can just do that. So this will show you all the available spreadsheets or databases within MariaDB. Okay, if you want to open up one spreadsheet, so to speak, okay, like for this, we actually need to open up a spreadsheet file in order to view the tables. Okay, you need to open up a spreadsheet file in order to view the tables. Similarly, you need to open up a so-called database in order to view the tables inside. So how do you actually open up this? So instead of doing show, okay, show is a bit like ls, show databases. Okay, and remember, always put a semicolon in order to finish. If you don't put a semicolon, show databases, they will just keep asking you for more commands like this. You keep entering, and then okay, what's supposed to do? Enter the semicolon. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay, then it will show the databases here, and then you see this is it's presented in a nice table format in the command line. So what's your next step? Okay, you want to actually maybe open up the test database, right? If you want to open up the test database, say use test. Okay, and then it will say here database changed, and then you'll see that test here is actually in this database. So if you're in this database, you can tell MariaDB to show you all the tables using show tables here. Always put semicolon. Okay, if you want to deal with databases or tables. Of course, if I type this use test, immediately MariaDB will know what you're talking about. If I use let's say I want to navigate to this information schema database, information schema, I can just type tab to complete. If I do a semicolon, you will say reading table for completion of table and column names. You can turn this feature off for quicker startup with A. Well, whether or not you use this semicolon when you use this when you type in this use statement or not, it's fine. Okay, or use test, it is still fine. So be on the safe side, just remember, always habitually put on your semicolons, just like for C# code or C code or C++ or JavaScript, whatever. Just use semicolon. Okay, next thing, well, we have this tables now. So how do you we have this database open? How do you actually show the tables here? So what you need to do is just type in show tables. Okay, show tables. Okay, and you'll say, oh, this is an empty table. Yeah, that's not very interesting, right? So maybe let's go to the system table. Let's use sys. Okay, use is here to open up the spreadsheet, so to speak, or open up the database. And then you can type show tables here. and then you'll see, oh, these are the tables that are open up. Okay, so that's like looking down here. There is sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3 for your spreadsheet. So similarly, this one will actually show you all the spreadsheets available. Okay, so if you want to go to MySQL, you can actually navigate use MySQL. So take some time to familiarize yourself with some of these basic commands before we start doing some of these database queries. Okay, show tables here, and then it'll show you, we have all these tables here. If you want to navigate to another database, just say show databases. Always put a plural there. Then you can go to if you want to go to performance schema, use performance schema, and you can type tab, and then you can do here show tables, and then this will show you all the tables right here. Okay, so that's enough for today. So this will show you at least how to navigate the MariaDB command line interface. We talked about how to install it, how to get it running, set up the server, and how to use MariaDB to look at some of these databases. Okay, so that's important background knowledge in order to start using databases databases. So thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful in getting you acquainted with the MariaDB command line interface. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.